raising investments and investing into other people in the concert industry, and I lost everything, and that would have been okay had I not lied about the losses and said they made money. They called it a Ponzi scheme, even though it was the most accidental thing ever. I never started out with these intentions. Sure. And before I knew it, I was getting indicted by the FBI and the IRS by the time I'm 19. And you're taking good money and mixing it with bad money. And you have just the business. You do one show. The business concept didn't have cash flow. You do one show, it can make money. Podcasting or business podcasting, because I didn't come from that. That's not what I was passionate about. The universe, whatever you believe in, it's meant to be for a reason. Everything worked out. I had so much failure when I started, and that just wasn't my purpose. The nightclub, all of that. That's why I don't get back in the nightclub business now. I like doing it, you know? I might do it again when I'm a millionaire and have some money to throw around just for the fun of it, you know? Yeah. But it's not my business purpose. Yeah. And I see so many guys that have experienced success before prison, then go to prison, they want to go back to being the rapper or doing this or owning the business. And that's how you're going to get yourself into more trouble that I wanted to do. And I have that now, all because I went to prison. So I wouldn't take any of that back. It's so important. You have to use your story. You just have to.
Ian Bick.
Travis, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for coming on my show, and I'm glad we're able to do this.
So cool. Grateful for you, man.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare you find someone that's genuine and crushing it, so I'm happy for you.
Thank you, man. You know, that's the power of social media, that you reached out to me on Instagram, and we connected, and now here we are.
Isn't that amazing?
It's so cool that social media allows you to do that. And that's why I tell people you have to look at your DMs, because you don't know what's going to be there. It could be your next relationship, your next, business partner, anything, friend. You got to look through the DMs all the time. So many people don't.
Really?
A lot of celebrities don't respond to DMs or comments and stuff. And I think that's something we've been able to really do with our platform, make it so inclusive, which is why I think people are, they're willing to come from all over the country out to here to sit down with us and hang out with us and do this, because it's open, it's inviting, it's comfortable. I mean, you see the studio, it's very homey. We even have like toothbrushes and toothpaste and stuff in here now, just to, make the experience good, and not just like some random, room that people are coming to. It's all about the experience. That's my event planning background for you.
I was going to ask that. Yeah, it feels very homey. It feels very purpose-driven.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very big on pictures and memories and everything like that. As you can see from walking around the studio, everything tells a piece of something. Even my tattoos are all from, a piece in time from my story.
Well, it's interesting. You take the event and then you take storytelling, and that's really what you're doing now on a massive scale.
Yeah, I love storytelling. I mean, even my clips, that's why I think I like doing the clips, because clipping is storytelling. You're putting together a good story. Like, I love taking like a 10-minute story and condensing that down to like 3 minutes so it flows good. I'm good with doing things like that. Storytelling is key. Storytelling is the new future. I mean, you see that in advertising and commercials and everything. If you can effectively storytelling, you can effectively, have a successful business or anything.
Very true. How many interviews have you done now?
I'm over 400 now. Not all those are released. We're probably at like 390 released or whatnot. But yeah, over 400 interviews. I started out doing one, and then a couple months later, 2, and then like 6 months later, 3. And then now this is going on, 2.5 years in, we're doing 5 a week. 5, I think, is the capacity for me, unless I get a full team eventually, because there's enough stories to do 7. Okay. If you think about it, there's millions of people that went to prison. Then you have law enforcement officers, then you have victims, and you have lawyers. Like, there's so many. I won't ever accomplish that in my lifetime, And I think that's where, like, you look at Rogan, he's doing 4 episodes a week. He can do that because he's interviewing just regular people. I mean, granted, there's celebrities, but he's not pigeonholed to one thing. It's not like him talking with a co-host, and where you look at other podcasts, the majority of podcasts are one person solo just talking about their life, which you can't do more than once a week. Maybe twice, or they have a co-host where they're talking about their lives or whatnot. You can't do it, It's not sustainable. You're going to get tired of it, and the audience isn't going to listen to it. There's only so much you can do and talk about pop culture and whatnot. So being able to interview people is the way that I'm able to put out so much. Yeah. And when you think about it, the more in my business, the more episodes you put out, the easier it gets, because I don't need to find 20 clips from one episode. I just need to find one maybe really good one, 2, 3 at the most.
Yeah.
Really good ones that I like, and then put that out there because I have so many episodes.
Is there like a recipe to a really good one?
It all depends. It's just kind of like a feeling. You really never know what's going to take off. Like my most viral clip ever was the butt ass guy, where he was talking about Rikers, and that wasn't even an original clip I pulled for him. I was sitting on the couch. I had already picked out my clips for the episode, and I was like, you know what, let me just throw one more up there. And I clipped it from the episode, and I threw it out there. I turned off my phone, like put it to the side, and I went back on. I had 1 million views in an hour. I've never seen anything like that. So that thing just took off, and now every time we post a clip, we posted several times, that thing just goes viral. It's just, that's a organic created moment that you would just never expect, you know? So it was just really interesting to see that happen. And you just never know what it's going to be. Just, you have no idea. That's why it's just important. You just go with your gut and push clips out there and push content.
Easier said than done sometimes because of all the negativity and the trolls.
A lot of negativity, a lot of trolls, but you do need them.
Tell us why.
I mean, it's so important. The greatest analogy I got out of a book I was reading by Darren Hardy. I don't know if you're familiar with him, real estate guy. He was saying how, you know, you have 100 million people say vote for the president of the United States, and whoever's elected, half of that, 50 million people, are not going to like the person that was elected. The most powerful person in the world, probably the most famous person in the world, half of the people that voted in that election won't like him. That doesn't mean he's not successful. That's a reality of it. So you need haters. You know, it's so important. I would rather have a video that has 5,000 comments with 2,500 of them being hate than a video that has 2,500 comments and they're all good. You need those extra comments. You need it. It gets conversation going.
Yeah.
It gets talk going.
Was this always the goal, to do podcasting in your life?
No, when I got out of prison, I wanted to get back into the nightclub business.
Okay.
And in a way, I guess I kind of did, because this is event planning in a way. Podcasting, what I do now, booking guests, sitting down, putting on a show, being on a stage. The seats are my stage. Social media is my stage. I'm performing. I did theater in high school. Okay. I was always like to be on stage. So doing that is technically event planning. It's like the concert business, just a different level. Yeah. So life kind of did bring me back full circle. But when I got out of prison, I wanted to get back into the nightclub business. And thank God that didn't work out, because COVID happened a year later, and that would have totally trashed anything I built. Even if I somehow was able to raise the money, which would have been very hard to pull off given my track record at that time, COVID would have destroyed it. And then I won the book deal. I won the movie deal. I genuinely thought I was going to be like the next Wolf of Wall Street. Read his books in prison, started writing a book. While I was in prison, I had a contraband cell phone. I was sending query letters to agents. Every single one of them rejected me. I think I had a couple interests, and it wasn't my, destiny to have that done. And I'm so thankful that I didn't become one of those overnight successes like the people that get the documentaries or the movies and they got it all handed to them. I had a documentary on HBO. It got me a few thousand followers on Instagram, and then it got taken down when they merged with Discovery Channel. And then Vice did something that has a few million views on YouTube, but it didn't blow me up. Everything I have now was just me grinding, putting up posts and all of that. So that was the original goal. And then I humbled myself, worked at Whole Foods for 3 years, worked my way up from a hot bar cook for $10 an hour to a prepared foods manager, making almost $33 an hour. It's going to be $100K that last year I was there with overtime. I was opening up stores with them, going to New York City, going to Long Island, moving my way up, wanted to become a manager. I was a big corporate guy, so my life was Whole Foods. I in bed early, up early, just everything was Whole Foods. My life revolved around it. Okay. And then one day my friend who used to be the videographer at the club was like, Ian, there's this whole concept that exploded because of COVID of sharing your story on social media, especially prison content, but anyone was doing it. There was this new world of influencers that COVID created, that TikTok specifically created, because all these other platforms were starting to copy the TikTok format. So TikTok was really the first one to do like this vertical short form content. It's like, you got to tell your story out there. I know you love Whole Foods, but there's more to life out there than that? Don't you want something bigger? So he got my head thinking, and I procrastinated for months. I, bought all this equipment, a Mac, all of these things on Amazon. I was like, I'm just waiting for the equipment to come in, everything I didn't need. When in reality, all I needed was my cell phone.
That's it.
And that's what it came down to when I got successful. And it was my 5th video. I was dying in bed from COVID, and I was stuffy, and I called him, and I had posted the other 4 videos were about the nightclub and stuff. And this one was going to be about prison. My first one ever talking about, I never talked about prison to anyone. Just me talking about prison.
Opening the phone, and here we go.
Exactly. I was always hesitant. I was always the guy that, people would point at. That's the guy that went to prison, the whispers. Never talked about it to my family. I was not open about it at all. Wow. Even when I was in therapy after prison, I didn't talk about prison. So this video was going to be about prison. He's like, Ian, if you're going to start down this journey, you have to be consistent. So I made the video all stuffy and raspy and in my room with bad lighting, and it went viral. It did a couple million views overnight. And ever since that day, that was August 2022, I have posted every single day on social media. I've never missed a day. And I was doing 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day posting in my car. Eventually got reached out to by some casting agent or whatever from MTV that wanted to cast me in a dating show. And so I was like, okay, this is my big break. This is fate. I just got my passport back from the court. I'm off probation. I'm quitting my job. I put in my 2 weeks, got ghosted by the casting agent, too afraid to go back and lick my wounds and ask for my job back. So maxed out my credit cards, lived off that, and just made content every single day. This is before the idea for the podcast even started. Wow. I had 100,000 followers on TikTok by the time I started the podcast, but I was just talking about prison. I was sharing my story about prison, and I was just being open, honest, vulnerable, and the way I looked and the way I talked and my experiences. There was other prison content creators out there, but no one that was someone that was 21 years old, white kid that, looks the way I look, that went to federal prison sharing a story.
You don't think you look like Wes Watson? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't look like Wes Watson. But there was a lot of those out there.
Tons.
Telling the war stories. And I was the first one that went out there saying I paid for protection.
Yeah.
And it just worked. I attracted an older audience. And then eventually we came up with the idea for the podcast. And at first it was terrible. Very cringe. Didn't know what I was doing. Never watched a podcast before. I had great questions, but I was so focused on asking the questions.
Oh, okay.
I'd typed up like 100 questions for each guest. They'd answer a question, I'm on to the next one.
Oh, instead of it just flowing
instead
in
of
conversation,
it just flowing,
wherever it goes, it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now now I just need to know what the premise of their story is. Are they a guard? Or do they go to prison? What they go to prison for? Is it an addiction story? And then I know how to carry the conversation.
Yeah.
Because then I could predict how it's going to go.
Correct.
And so I know the pace of it. But back then it was just coming up with these questions, which were good questions, which is probably why people listened.
Yeah.
But it was just very cringe. The angles were bad. The studio, it wasn't where it needed to be. But you evolve. I read the comments, I took the feedback, and I evolved it. And each day I made it a little bit better, and then I went to 2 episodes. I went to 3 episodes, and I did an interview where my producer at the time interviewed me, and that just went stupid viral. The stories about me paying for protection in prison, all these like World Star and No Jumper reposted it, and it got millions and millions of views, and that was the defining point where I really got out there. And then, going into year 1, the completion of year 1, I had like 500,000 followers on TikTok, and I did 100,000 YouTube subscribers in the first 5 months on YouTube, which is extremely hard to do.
It's incredibly hard.
I got my first YouTube check after 4 months.
Whoa.
And I had my first 30 grand month on social media 6 months in from starting the podcast. The podcast is really what changed it, because if you just make content on your phone, you're going to get burnt out. It's going to be hard to stay consistent if you're not switching things up. The podcast gives you evergreen content that's just so different, and you can clip, and Gary Vee talks about it all the time. Do a podcast, and we've even done like fake podcasts when I first started out, where you sit in the chair and tell 30 stories. You can tell the same story every time, but just in different formats, and it'll still do well.
Wow.
I take a lot of the same stories I've told on different podcasts I've done, or just in different settings, and you retell it, and it goes out to a new audience. And it's entertaining. That's why, I don't think my podcast will ever get old, because even though people have overlapping experiences in prison or in law enforcement or whatever, it's being told by a new personality.
Yeah.
So if an actor says the same lines, it's going to be different because of who that person is.
Yeah.
So you're seeing different vulnerability. You're seeing different expressions. I mean, a great example is the judge we had on in prison the other day. He's told the same prison story that a lot of people tell, but he did it with a different kind of emotion, a different facial feature, and he's a guy you would never expect to go to prison.
Totally.
So I think that's the hook, and that's why it's so different compared to a lot of other shows.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant hook for sure. Do you think that the vulnerability is like the superpower?
Yeah, I think people trust me now.
Yeah.
I think that, you get a lot of people that are just willing to come here just so because they know they're not going to be interrupted. They know they can just get whatever off their chest. They know I'm not going to edit it or twist it or do anything. And that sometimes that frustrates the audience because they're expecting a certain thing. But also on the flip side, it's like, okay, there's so many episodes. If you don't like this one, just skip to the next one.
Yeah.
And you're not going to insult me. It's totally fine. I know it's a variety. Not every guest is going to be a great storyteller or is going to be able to talk fluidly or get their story across.
Right.
And that's fine. But that story that they're sharing will relate to someone because there's going to be someone that, relates to it.
Yeah, I think
so.
That's
what I've learned in that art of podcasting.
I think that's huge. How long did you go to prison for?
I went to prison I got a 36-month sentence and I did 27 months and then a year on home confinement on the ankle monitor and then 3 years total of supervised release. That first year was on house arrest.
Wow. In the feds?
In the feds, yeah. Never went to state prison or anything. I had a misdemeanor state charge for selling liquor without a permit.
Oh. From the nightclub days?
From the nightclub days, yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, no, I graduated right to the big leagues.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And where did you do all your time?
I was all over the place. I was, at Fort Dixon, New Jersey to, I was in Philly, I was in Brooklyn, I was in Danbury for a little bit.
Oh.
I had a crazy prison story. I finished it off in Wisconsin. For a year at the federal prison camp there. They kind of shipped me around, but it made everything I have today. Like my story I always thought the sexiness to my story was owning a nightclub at 18. Like that's crazy. You're booking these giant acts, biggest acts in the world, 18 years old, 19 years old. I thought that was going to be the hook.
Okay.
What became the hook was the thing no one likes to talk about open and honestly. And that was about prison, the thing that society will cast you outwards. Now it's not like that as much because you have say Donald Trump who was arrested and stuff. And you have so many people talking about it, but it wasn't too long ago. It was just a few years ago where you're marked as the bad person.
Correct.
You're stared at, you're outcasted if you went to prison.
Yeah.
Now, people more than ever are willing to share their stories. I don't think that judge that went to prison would have ever shared a story 4 years ago. It's just so much different, and that's how I felt. I didn't talk about prison. When I did the documentaries for HBO or Vice, they never got into prison. You look at all these celebrities that went to prison, they don't talk about prison. They talk about everything else, or they use the publicity they got from going to prison for it. And you look at these crime documentaries, like the Anna Delveys and all these people, the Billy McFarlands, none of them get into prison. It's their crime, the lead up to it, what they did, and okay, they're gonna be successful after, whatever they wanna do. We don't hear the prison stories. And that's what people really want to hear. They outcast people for it, or they used to, but they also are intrigued by it. So I think I broke that wall down to make it, more accepting in society, hearing that. And I think once the celebrities start talking about it, then it'll really be broken through,
I agree with that. Did you find your time from Wisconsin to Connecticut did you find your time different at those different camps? Were there different rules? Was it different food? Was it a different environment? Or were the feds kind of all the same for you?
No, everything was different. I mean, there's different politics. When you go from a low security to a camp, it's a lot different, There's no sex offenders at camps. The food is pretty much the same. Granted, some differences. Prices of contraband could be different. And then people are pretty much the same. I mean, obviously there's some differences, but for the most part, you always get a different experience. That's why it's always funny seeing comments saying, oh, this doesn't happen in prison. I've been to prison. You can go to any prison in the country. You're going to have a different experience from one versus the other. Yeah. It's just every single thing is different, especially on the state level, because each state operates different. I think you'll have more similarities on the federal level. But even so, there's still going to be differences.
And even on the state level, having done what I've done for the last decade or so, every year or every time there's a new director in the state, you could have a different flavor in that state. So you could have more more lax visitation or more lax commissary, or even on the state level. So when you get guys coming out, to your point, who go, oh, I did time in 2010 or 2015 and wherever, pick a state, and that's not the way it was. Well, so much has changed in that particular state, and that changes the flavor. So I've had places that would never, I've had people tell me there was no way in the world I got off the yard every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like every day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, like got off the yard. We were opening when I didn't have my job because they had vacation or holidays at the college. We would go to the elementary schools and we would cut the rectangle slices of pizza with a pizza cutter. And then we would open up like their chocolate milks and their regular milk containers, the nasty paper ones that you can never get open. 4 of us inmates in full orange jumpsuits like you have upstairs, we would literally be opening milks for children in elementary school.
That's great.
Nobody would believe that that was the real case of prison. If that were the case, why wouldn't you just stay on the streets?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, to your point, I love the comments of this didn't happen or that didn't happen. You don't know what happened or didn't happen.
Yeah,
you weren't there.
People have no idea whatsoever.
None. How did you get into the nightclub?
So me and my best friend Steven at the time had foamed these cars with insulating foam. In our neighborhood, in my parents' neighborhood, there was like a board of directors, and the president and vice president made rules targeting us, saying we couldn't have golf carts, we couldn't have dirt bikes, no paintball, all of these things. So we retaliated on mischief night, my freshman year, his sophomore year, or junior year. And we got caught. We used insulating foam to like harden the door handles, and it dripped down the side, caused like $5,000 worth of damage. We got caught, sentenced to community service, and I was reading, or we were studying this poem on homelessness in English class. And for some reason, it popped in my mind, I want to start a charity for it. That was going to be my community change project to fulfill my community service. And that just evolved into something I never would have expected. I mean, if you think about it, that moment is what ultimately would send me to prison, because that just started a domino effect. And I got my dad to buy these bracelets, the Live Strong bracelets online, the rubber ones. And I said, fight for the homeless on them for $1 a piece. And I sold them, raised money. That escalated to convincing the school principal to let me throw a dance for that charity. Found this corporate center in Danbury, did a dance, raised more money, got a job there, fell in love with the event planning business. And then I started throwing house parties at my parents' house. And from the house parties, I said I could convert this into dollars. I started renting local clubs, and in high school, junior year, I'm making 10, 15 grand a night profit throwing these raves, the Christmas rave, Halloween rave, a paint party, a foam party once a month, doing these things. That escalates into wanting to do concerts at different arenas and colleges along the East Coast, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. That's where I go and raise money for these concerts, and I lose that money because the concert industry is extremely tough, and I knew nothing about it. Like the big scale concerts, I knew promotion, but I didn't know that. And I thought I was already successful and I made it. And I basically acted as if I was a hedge fund, raising investments and investing into other people in the concert industry. And I lost everything. And that would have been okay had I not lied about the losses and said they made money, because I was taking money from friends and family, and I didn't want to be looked at as not successful. So once you tell one lie, until you come clean, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So all these lies unfolded, and racked up all this debt, borrowing money from one person to pay another. They called it a Ponzi scheme, even though it was the most accidental thing ever. I never started out with these intentions. Sure. And before I knew it, I was getting indicted by the FBI and the IRS by the time I'm 19. But it doesn't stop there. While that's going on, I got the idea to go back to my roots and reopen the club I used to promote at, because it had closed by that point, and that's called Tuxedo Junction. So while I'm on bond and while I'm on trial against the feds, I somehow raised new money from new investors for this club. We're owning this nightclub and booking these big acts, the Chainsmokers, Steve Aoki, Adventure Club, big acts. And the problem was I had so much negative debt, and you're taking good money and mixing it with bad money, and you have just the business. You do one show, the business concept didn't have cash flow. You do one show, it can make money, but you're only open once a month. There's no liquor license. We're just doing like water, sodas, Red Bulls, which if you have a good night could make money because you're upcharging a lot. You're selling a water for $5, $6. But it was only once a month, and there was cash flow issues. So once you lose on a show, then you're even in a worse hole. And I'm all this hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from the old business. And I have the FBI investigating me and putting me on trial. But I had a good run. I did it all the way up until the day I got my bond revoked in 2016. I was going out of state to gamble. I was a big gambler. I'd go to Empire City in Yonkers, and I'd play electronic baccarat and win money to pay the bills, pay the electric bill. I would take promoter money and just go there and do it. And I did that up until, the first week of October 2016. I'm 21 years old. And the judge revoked my bond because he found out I was going. And then a month later, I got sentenced to 3 years in prison. And little did I know that was going to be the best thing that could ever happen to me.
Fantastic. How does the FBI get in touch with you?
So I got served, me and my business partner, who was my best friend, got served we got served subpoenas by the Department of Banking. Didn't know we had a Department of Banking. And our plan was, let's just tell them everything. So we put together everything for them: documents, addresses, money, everything. I had never kept a bookkeeping or anything. So I sat down, did the bookkeeping, the bank accounts. They had nothing at this point. They were asking for everything. I probably could have avoided all this if I just called an attorney and went there. I put the whole case together for them because I connected all the dots. I involved people that wouldn't have involved themselves with law enforcement into the picture. Only a couple kids from high school that had lost money went to the cops to complain. So this thing probably could have been contained, a deal could have been reached, whatever could have happened. Go to the Department of Banking. I testify for 6 hours without an attorney present. At the end of it, they say, hey, there's these gentlemen waiting for you to talk to you. I go into this room. They turn out to be postal inspectors, federal postal inspectors. I didn't know we had postal inspectors. They're investigating wire fraud, mail fraud, all of this. I talked to them. And little did I know, they had listened to the whole 5-hour conversation, and they asked me very targeted questions.
Very specific.
Also, they could charge me with lying to them afterwards. But they messed up and they didn't serve me the target letter until the end of the conversation. So I actually won that charge at trial, which it doesn't matter because the feds overcharge you anyways. All they got to win is one, to get the time or whatever. But after that moment, when they served me the target letter, which was the FBI target letter saying you're under investigation by FBI, IRS, postal inspectors, that's when I called an attorney and told my parents, and that started the whole thing. But had I just gotten a lawyer from the get-go, I probably could have avoided a lot of things. And they didn't want to offer me a good plea deal. They were always asking for jail time. And we talked about on my show about waste of taxpayer dollars. Yeah. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my trial and prosecution when I only owed $490,000 was the net out of pocket. They probably spent $1 million, $2 million on my whole thing. Then plus the incarceration, it was millions. It doesn't make sense what they did. When I would have pled guilty to probation or house arrest, they refused to do that. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Connecticut. And keep in mind, I'm 19 years old at the time, and I'm not taking on more money. It's not like I'm still committing fraud at that point. I wasn't going out of state at that time. I had a clean slate, if you think about it, They should have just gave me a deal and pled out, and that would have been the end of it. And me and you wouldn't be here right now, but that's all they had to do.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do that. They said they want prison time.
Yep.
So we took it to trial, me and my attorney. And when you're going against the feds, it's hard. And they had charged me with 15 counts, but we did pretty good. We won like 60% of the counts. Getting some not guilty verdicts on a trial is a win, is an accomplishment against the federal government. And that just goes to show that their case wasn't technically tight. I mean, we were up against the clock with the jury deliberating with Thanksgiving. And it was a very confusing case, especially when it comes to money. And I don't understand how they could be not guilty on wire fraud on one count and guilty on another, where in each wire fraud count, one of the conditions is you have to have the intent to defraud.
Correct.
So how can I have the intent to defraud someone in the same time period within a couple days apart on one day and not the other? I didn't get that.
Yeah.
And then the jury was deadlocked on others. But like I said, they only need one charge to stick to get that jail time.
And they overcharge everybody.
Yeah, exactly. When you see someone plead guilty to one count, it's because they threatened to charge them with 15 or 20, and then they reduce it to one for the plea deal. But it doesn't matter on your record or anything.
No.
And people are so afraid to take them to trial. They're not going to actually throw the book because you went to trial. It's just the guide that you're looking at the guidelines. You're still going to get the same time. It's just not as guaranteed as a plea deal.
Correct.
So it didn't really make a difference. And honestly, I probably would have got house arrest even after losing a trial if I never went out of state and pissed the judge off.
That makes sense.
Because my guidelines after trial were 9 to 12 years. And the judge gave me 3 years with a year house arrest. The government was asking for like 7 to 9. So with that in mind, I think we would have got house arrest or probation had I not pissed him off.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, it's an interesting, and your last sentence of having not pissed him off, it's crazy because we often think there's a matrix to this, right? Like, you and I would probably agree, like, okay, if I've harmed children, like I should get the most. If I've harmed elderly, it's just under children, but it's just above, like I've harmed regular humans, right? There should be a matrix. But I've learned that this is so emotional. Some of these judges, some of these district attorneys, some of these prosecutors, the emotional stance that they take is so much deeper than the charges that they've stacked against you. When you look at your podcast, was the goal always prison? Was the goal always storytelling? And the reason I asked this question to frame it up for you is there's so many people that come to us that are looking to start a business, and a lot of it in the social media realm. So I'm sitting behind bars and I want to start a podcast, but I don't know what to do. How did you find your lane, your niche, your vein, your purpose?
I think I found it through using something that was so personal to me and so like painful, but also was special and made me different and just took a new spin on it. Like I would never have gotten into sports podcasting or business podcasting because I didn't come from that. That's not what I was passionate about. I think when you're on your path to discovering purpose, a big part of it is using something from your past to kind of fulfill that purpose and drive it. I don't think you just randomly wake up one day and say, my purpose in life is sports when you've never played sports in your life. There's got to be, I think, something that ties it all together. And then I think you also have to look at it as you want to give your own take to it. Yes, the prison market and addiction market's oversaturated, but how can you be a new person in that field? We were talking earlier about like, how do you fit into the space? And yours is because it's your passion. It's a passion project. It's not something you're looking to make money on.
Yeah.
So that makes you different. But there's so many people that will literally copy my thumbnail ideas or my guests to the T or everything, the titles, everything. And it's just not going to work for them because that's not what it is, you know? I developed those steps along the way. But I remember first starting out, getting a lot of views when there was no ChatGPT. I didn't use ChatGPT for titles. Our thumbnails weren't the best. All of these things, and it still did well because I was authentic and I stuck true to myself, and that was what I was destined to become. That was purpose.
Yeah.
So I think that when things are destined, whether you believe in God or don't, the universe, whatever you believe in, it's meant to be for a reason. Everything worked out. I had so much failure when I started, and that just wasn't my purpose. A nightclub, all of that. That's why I don't get back in the nightclub business now. I like doing it, you know? I might do it again when I'm a millionaire and have some money to throw around just for the fun of it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not my business purpose.
Yeah.
But this business I have runs, there's been problems, but it runs way more smoothly and things come together because of that purpose and because this is what I'm supposed to be doing in life.
Supposed to be. I love that, man. It's like it's like you've hit all the nexus of excitement. Like it's financially working, it's mentally working. Like it's so fun to see you succeed in all of that. But the beauty is, in my opinion, is that you've taken away the ego. You did work at Whole Foods for the years. You did grind it out. Like, I think so many people just want to circumvent that. Like, I want Ian's success, but I don't want the 5 years of failure. And I would suggest, you can correct me, this is a question to you. I would suggest the reason that they want that is because they're so afraid of being themselves. They're so afraid of telling the real story of pain or trauma or abuse or being molested or being a drug addict. I think so many people just want to show up in front of the red Ferrari.
Yeah, what I see is like there's a lot of people that want to come on the show and to talk about what they're doing, but they don't want to talk about prison or how they got to what they're doing. They're very cautious about that. And I think that answers it to the T. The success I have now is because I was willing to talk about my story. Yeah. I don't necessarily need to do it as much anymore, but I did put all the cards on the table. Every article that's bad about me is because of my past. It's not like there's any new scandals or anything like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think when you own it, what could people say at that point? Like, it's always funny when I have a clip go viral and people start posting the links to my articles from 10 years ago. It's not a recent article. It's out there. I built my platform. Before I ever started the podcast, I had 100,000 followers on one platform alone just from talking about prison before I ever posted a guest on my show. Wow. to tell their story. So that was 100,000 people that gravitated towards my story, liked my content, and followed me.
Whoa.
And that was just on TikTok. So that's when I knew the thing was working, and it still continues to grow. I never wanted to be a YouTuber, and I know how hard it is to grow on YouTube. I think I'm in like the top 3,000 or 4,000, percentile or whatever for followers, and I only have 300,000. And that just goes to show how hard it is to grow on there.
Yeah.
So if I'm a top 4,000 YouTubers in the world, there's just so many people that don't have that, just like podcasts. There's millions and millions of podcasts. They say if you have like 1,000 or 2,000 listens, you're in the top 5%, because it's so hard to get that.
Yeah.
So hard.
If the guys and gals are sitting behind bars listening to this, and they've got the capacity and they can articulate it, and they've got a story and all the elements, right, of success, where do you suggest that he or she begins?
I think the very first thing they got to do is when they get out is they have to work a job to rebuild their life. A lot of these people, what I've seen, have kids or a wife and stuff. I was lucky where I didn't have that. And I had my parents to support me, but I became very independent very quickly. I think I became independent within 6 or 7 months of getting out of prison. So you don't necessarily need someone to rely on. You could go live out of a car or a shelter or whatever, I was lucky to have a home to come to. But I think working the job got me credit, a dog, a relationship at the time, an apartment, all of these things on my own without starting a business.
Yep.
It just built that, And I see so many guys that have experienced success before prison, then go to prison, they want to go back to being the rapper or doing this or owning the business. And that's how you're going to get yourself into more in trouble. If you just work that job, you're going to stack some good amount of money, save up a few $1,000s, make your probation officer happy. Do that, surround yourself, dive into work overtime, do that for a year or two. And it doesn't even have to be for someone else. Go drive Uber or DoorDash or whatever, do whatever. Go work wherever you want to work, but get a job, get revenue flowing for minimum wage. And that will give you the ground laying, humble yourself moment. You'll meet new people and you'll rebuild. And then you go and do what you want to do. And I bet you, if you spend that time doing that, you won't even want to do the thing that you thought was a good idea or wanted to do when you first got out anyways. You'll pivot. Because that got my mind completely off of the concert business, and I didn't ultimately want to end up into the concert business. So you'll find a new idea, or you'll find a new business partner, or you'll find a relationship or whatever in those moments.
I love that pivot idea, because people will ask me all the time, like, well, how do I know if this is the business? How do I know? How do I know? And I'm like, until you're down the path doing the work, it's irrelevant to talk about what you think you should be doing. Like, I think you have to be in the trenches in order for opportunities to present themselves. And it seems like to me, your pivot comment is perfect, because you were probably at a time where you said, I'm going to go back in the nightclub, I'm going to go back to what I know, right? And then there you are, just laying in bed, like, I'm going to open my phone and finally be vulnerable and tell my story.
Yeah.
And it changed your whole world.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it all the time. Like, if I never did that, I wouldn't have any of this. I have the freedom that I was looking for the whole time, that I wanted to do. And I have that now, all because I went to prison. So I wouldn't take any of that back. It's so important. You have to use your story. You just have to.
I love it, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
It's good stuff.